Hello, hello, and welcome. This is Chatting with Humans, and I am your host, Darrel-Lynne. Today I am chatting with fellow human Ulrike Tooke. She is just as unique as her name sounds, in fact, and I've had the pleasure of being connected to her through just common connections and social media. And when she saw I was launching a podcast, she said, "This is what I've been chatting with in my circles, in my group chats." And it resonated. So I was very pleased to be able to invite Ulrike on for our first ever one-to-one conversation, but with the record button on. So we cover a lot of ground. Ulrike does share her personal story and some of the things that she's navigated and walked and the awakening she's had, not through easy means either. She lost her mom when she was quite young, and she shares about the realizations she's come to in her healing journey, especially in the last few years. We talk about human connection. We talk about intuition. We get into dreams, personal growth. We honestly covered a lot of ground, and we also talk about what's next for Ulrike, which we touch briefly on the subject of discernment in our conversation. And Ulrike reached out to me after we recorded this podcast because that resonated deeply for her. And I think it's important you stay tuned to what she's bringing out into the world in the next little bit, because she will be offering guidance on discernment, turning it from maybe something we acknowledge as a buzzy word into something tangible and meaningful that we can use to apply in our life. Enjoy this conversation. Thank you again, Ulrike, for coming on. I really enjoyed chatting with you. A little backstory here. When I first shared that Chatting with Humans was going to be coming to the airwaves, I posted on social media. And I know you had commented and said, "Oh my gosh, I was just chatting with," and you tagged a bunch of people about kind of the thing that is pulled into the title of this podcast, Chatting with Humans. And you said something in there where it was resonant, and that was really what was coming up in some dialogue you were having with some people. So I messaged you and I said, "Come on and chat, because if if it's coming up for you, then we absolutely need to entertain this." So I think
Yeah,
do you recall that?
I do. We had actually had a group chat with a bunch of people and just kind of caught up on things. And this was something that we were like, where can we go to bring these conversations back in? And social media is just limiting sometimes. And we're like, okay, well, you can do a live, but it's not really the same because you want the interaction of the strangers and just yeah, having that community aspect where people can have real conversations, not just the scripted, hey, we're going to talk about this topic only or whatever. So it just seemed like everybody really wanted that and a place to be creative.
I think she was in that group of people, which she has come on and chatted already. And I know she feels very deeply about this subject. I mean, we all have our personal reasons, I think, for the desire, at least many of us right now, especially have this desire to just connect. There's a lot of divisiveness and things tearing and trying to tear and pull us apart. And the necessity of just getting to know people that maybe we wouldn't usually talk to, although I'm sure if I was in the same city and we ran in the same circles, I would happily sit down and chat with you in person. But yeah, the idea of just meeting people where they're at and really meeting at a human level just feels so important right now.
Hmm.
So does that resonate with you? Have you been finding that in your own life, and that necessity, just like a craving almost?
Definitely. Yeah. I haven't really, there was a, in my 20s, I didn't use social media at all.
Mm,
And
good for
so
you.
I yeah, some days I'm like, "Oh, I don't really miss it." But I met a lot of great people because of it. It's just the quality of conversations that we're, wanna hone in on instead of just the mindless stuff. And, what you touched on in terms of like the world is I think it's really important that we return to that heart because, we as humans, I don't think we've unlocked our true potential. And we talk about technology, and I think we have innate technology. And we need to be able to use our intuition to unlock that technology and really grow as humanity instead of, fragmenting ourselves even more. And so I think that's going to be kind of the next level is touching on that.
Yeah, actually, this brings me to some of the things you kind of peppered into the questions I ask while during, I guess, the intake process for this. Trust me, it's not rigorous, but I do just want to get a sense of like, what do you feel called to share about? What feels most alive? And I feel like we could go in so many directions, but you did talk about overcoming self-abandonment and
Yeah.
that put you said that put your brain some major blind spots on to protect you and see identity shift. Can you explain that to me and what that looked like for you?
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous.
That's
I'm
okay.
I've never been good at showing my feelings 100%, and that's why I'm doing this.
Mhm.
Bringing my authenticity forward. This is it was just so interesting to me what my own brain had done, and this out of survival. So I'll go back a little bit, just because we said everything's on the table. So the last quarter of this year or last year, I had decided to really just dive into some stuff, and I did not expect to unearth this. It was a complete surprise. So what I was doing is kind of going back to childhood stuff and like, okay, why is it that I struggle with certain money beliefs, for instance? That's where I started. But what happened was I realized when I was 7, I lost my mother, and we were in a really bad car accident. And when that happened, I remember sitting in the police car and I was like, "Yep, I'm an adult now." Well, not really, but like in my ego is like, "Okay, I know she's not going to make it, and I know that I have to take care of myself and I just have to be strong." But what I realized a couple months ago, when I did that, I effectively created a new identity for myself who had to be strong. And the old identity, the old Ulrike, didn't get to exist anymore. I didn't let her, like, I grieved and all of that, but I didn't grieve that loss of myself, or I didn't take care of myself or allow myself to have all these experiences and feelings. And so when I realized that, it was like a major grief experience. Yeah, and it hit me like a wall. It was like totally unexpected. Yeah, and it was just grieving that abandonment and having abandoned myself. Then I had carried that forward and always yeah, just got in my own way effectively. And so realizing this and really I did it because of it was survival, right? And so I'm not hard on myself for having done that, but my brain had effectively created this split and wouldn't allow me to see it because it's survival. So only now I was able to see it for what it is and then move through that. And it was just so interesting what can happen.
L I mean, how do I say? Because there's this element of like, wow, I'm always curious, like, what is like the what was the do you know what the catalyst was that and even allowed you to look back and, like, unveil that for yourself?
Yeah, it was just like radical responsibility of,
Mm,
you know, why don't I show up? Why don't I want to talk about things?
mm,
I'm very willing to adjust my behavior, but it's always been hard for me to speak about it or be like expressive about it. And why don't I even express joyfully? I think back to like when people, if somebody gives me a gift, inside I could be super happy, but I'm like, I always tone it down a little bit. So I can be super weird, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I've always kind of censored myself. And I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore because it's so draining. It's not getting me where I want to be in life. And my whole, really, the little girl that I was, all I wanted to do was live life fully. And how do you do that if you're always self-censoring? So it was just I really want to work through this. And I started looking at things in a different way. And I was actually working with somebody and he had just asked me a question in a different way. And I was looking at a photo of myself. Like, why haven't I brought her along on some things? And that's where I was like, oh, it's because I'm the one who abandoned her, not anybody else. Yeah. I'm like, wow, how did I not see
Because you
that?
said you were 7.
Yeah.
Like, that's so young.
Yeah, it is. When I see 7-year-olds now, I'm like, "What?" In my
Yeah.
head, I felt like, totally different 7-year-old. Yeah, it didn't compute, right?
Yeah, and not to mention, I mean, you lost your mom in the process
Mhm.
too. Like, that's a huge loss. But then, yeah, your ego, if you want to say ego, like made the decision to flip the switch because it decided you need to be in the driver's seat. But you were
Yeah,
still very much a child.
it's true,
And
but I
did you have
also
someone there at that time? Like, kind of,
yeah, my grandmother, I was very close to, and
okay.
luckily, she was there for me. But,
Mhm.
I also knew so I said goodbye to my mom 2 days before her death.
Okay.
I knew something was gonna happen, and yeah, I knew. I did, yeah, and I tried to get her not to go on the trip with her friend. So I think a part of that was like, "Oh, yeah, I chose this." Weirdly, right? Like, I felt some kind of responsibility for, "Okay, this is just my life path, and now I just need to buckle up and get on the next ride." But, always forgetting that I am human. That has been my biggest lesson in this life is, like, accepting the humanity in me, and I always struggled with that. I used to tell my grandmother, "Oh, why do I have to have a body? Like, this is so can I just be free?" And it's strange, right? For like an 8-year-old to think that, or like I've never had a problem with death. Not that I wouldn't want to die. I have so much to do and I love life. So
Something that maybe terrifies you,
yeah,
the idea of going to that our original home, if you will.
that's just it. I always thought, oh, well, it's interesting that we celebrate babies being born. And I know they call it celebration of life when
Right.
people pass away, but like the experience of dying should be more beautiful. I think. I mean, they're not always, obviously. You don't
I know.
get to pick how you go.
Yeah, in some cases, I think, wow, that I feel like I could kind of go on a tangent just about how we do usher out life when we have the opportunity to. I think
Mhm.
the systems that we have in place right now, generally for the vast majority of elderly, are we've pushed our elders to the margins, and I think palliative care for all that it is and offers isn't necessarily the best way we can be celebrating and ushering that
Mhm.
exit. And I feel like it kind of it's a bookend situation because we know this with birth too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but that, like I say, that's kind of an aside because I hear what you're saying, in that even regardless of how someone goes, how do we choose to celebrate and acknowledge that as well? And how do we process that for ourselves, and what is the truth of like what's actually happening to that soul? And it's my belief, and it sounds like maybe even yours, we're going somewhere really, really expansive and really, really beautiful,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
So
I've never struggled with that concept. It's just been like,
yeah, I mean, I love the concept of we have a soul contract. We're coming here to fulfill a certain um, curriculum for ourselves, things that we are brought to Earth to learn. We sign up for this knowing that Earth is like beautiful, but also it's a challenge. Like we're gonna face challenges on our journey, but we do it willingly. But then they also wipe us of the memory. But I feel like some people, which it sounds like to me, for you, it is the case for you, is you kept a certain remembering that maybe just stayed more innately with you than some people, right? Does that resonate for you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one of the things, so luckily my mom wrote down a lot of things, and I will share something in the future too about a gift she had given me recently. She used to write all kinds of things down on napkins and doodle, and she was like, she designed clothes and stuff. So I had found a napkin with a date, and that said, Ulrike told me you're the right mom that I wanted to choose. I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I remembered." Like, I don't remember telling her that. Um, so there's certain things or things that I knew about people. I feel like, we all have intuition, and it's just different different formats, and they come through in different ways. I've also closed off my intuition for a good number of years, like 10 years. I had asked to just stop dreaming because a lot of things were coming through my dreams. So I had a lot of precognitive dreams. So things would happen within about 2 weeks, not always exact, but sometimes symbolic. I would tell my family and friends about this hilariously. Like a couple of them called me Oracle when I was a kid. And I'm like, I don't really like that. And nobody's going to believe you unless you tell them and it happens, right? So then yeah, I had a really bad one. It was actually about my husband. So I did meet him 6 years after I had the dream, but the dream setting, let's just say, was very awful. And I felt like I had grieved him for like 2 months. And I'd never known this guy. I'm like, this is insane. I don't want to dream this stuff anymore. So, yeah, I prayed and I just asked for this to go away. Then, fast forward 10 years, I'm married. I have a great life. I've been working through breaking all of my cycles, like any negative cycles. And I actually wanted to start dreaming, and it like was like, nope, you're not ready for this. I had to, I had to meditate more. I had to listen. It's not just like, oh yeah, I'm ready to hear the big answer, right? We all want to get that answer from above, like that loud voice. It's not like that. So I had to really cultivate listening to myself, and then I started having these dreams, these very vivid dreams that were coming true, some of them a couple years later, but they were all positive. So that to me tells me that I was calling in what was my state of mind.
The dreams that you desired to shut off were when you were in a state of mind that you didn't want to hear. Am I hearing this how you're explaining it?
Yeah, and I would just not in a happy place. I was a little bit more depressed. I was
Yeah.
just felt lost in life. And so I was pulling in all of these negative, like catastrophic things and some, like for example, we had a kid in our school and he got leukemia and everybody said that, oh, he's over the leukemia. And he came to me in the dream and he said goodbye. And so I told people this and they were so upset with me, like, how dare you? And then he did die. And I was like, I'm sorry.
We can't just like skim over the fact that you warned your own mother at 7.
Mm,
Like that's huge that you had that premonition, you had that knowing. And oh my gosh, it's like really big. And then you end up sharing something else publicly,
mm,
and people were like not happy about it. Honestly, this is so interesting because I do have a fear around this because sometimes I have things that come up around dead people, people that are no
yeah,
longer with us on the physical. And because of the way people hold memory of the ones they love, and there's a lot tied into there, and rightfully so. It's a very scary concept or idea to think about telling someone what I've been communicated, because
Mm.
I feel like I don't know what I'd be met with, and I haven't personally practiced the best way to do that with people. But anyway, it's interesting that you have this ability, but you've also learned how to you've you can express it. You've been able to share it too,
Yeah, to some degree.
to some degree. Yeah.
There's a lot of people in my family that I don't really talk about this because it's yeah, I don't know.
Friends, other people though, people
Yeah,
in
I
your
would say so, yeah, and my husband has no he's never looked at me sideways for saying these things,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And then just because I was kind of missing like the thread in there, you with your husband. So
Mm.
you were having dreams about him?
I only had one, and I was about 16, I think. Yeah, like, it started off as this beautiful dream, and I'm like I didn't even have a real relationship at that time. So, to me, like, being so in love or having this incredible connection to this human, we both look differently, and then something really negative happened in the dream. He effectively saved me, and he died. Um, I feel like I'm grieving. I'm sitting in class thinking about this, and it feels more real than my real life. And I'm like, but it's just a dream. But I had recognized, the difference between just regular, like nonsensical dreams, subconscious, whatever. And these ones, they feel different, they look different. Like I said, it feels more like real life. So how I knew it was him was when I met him, his eyes are the same. Like when he turned around, I was like, ah, I know you.
Did it flash you right back to that dream that you had about him?
Yeah, I told him later, I'm like, this is going to be insane, but I actually dreamt of you, however many years ago.
You've
And,
had something. Wow. And does this happen regularly? Like, where you have these premonitions? Is it fairly regularly?
and now they've changed. Like they haven't changed. Yeah. So I had to dream about our property actually. So I had this, yeah, this amazing dream. I told him about it. I'm like, oh, I hope, because we were traveling a lot at the time. Like, I really hope one day we find this place. But the mountains are really green, so it's not the Rockies. I assumed it was actually more of a tropical place. And, it's two mountain ranges, and I was like floating down, and I was walking by the stream. I was walking through this cabin, and the stream was running to the river. Anyway, like, I don't know if it was 3 years later, we bought this property. Yeah, and I was wow. Yeah, when we were driving up to it, I was recognizing the mountain ranges. But for the most part, my dreams now, they're just more, I don't know, they're a little bit more otherworldly and like floating down a river and trying to bring memories back. Like I'm seeing my family that have passed on, or they're trying to teach me something and I don't remember it. That's really frustrating. Like I wake up and I might go and I remember maybe half of it, and it's like, oh my gosh, I need to. So now I'm actually want to work on recall.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something in there for you that is like a gift that needs to be tapped into. That's what it sounds like.
And one thing I think, and maybe other people will find this too, is I think when we struggle with expressing things like in this body, the way that intuition can come through is our dreams, because that's where our subconscious gets to live. So that's like the outlet for it. It's like, hey, it's trying to tell me something, so that's where it's coming out.
Great. Great. I haven't taken a deep dive into dream and dream analysis. I know there's some pretty profound, let's say, rabbit holes you can go down with
Yes.
that. But uh, I think dreams are absolutely one of our probably most under leveraged, underutilized, underestimated tool in our lives
Mhm.
for so many reasons, like for messages that we should be receiving things and things we could be purging or
Mm.
accessing or just jotting down. I personally haven't gotten into the habit of writing down my dreams every morning, but I know that even just taking the time to do that on a regular basis can be like quite the game changer for someone because
Yeah, for
I've done
me
it
too.
on like intermittently here and there, and it absolutely helps me pull threads into things that I'm experiencing and seeing in real life too. So
It's interesting, isn't it? I
it's
need to start
absolutely,
doing that. I actually wanted to explore, like, just getting people together and kind of, like, exploring these things a little bit, or just
yeah.
having a place where people chat about it, because I've noticed when I start talking about my dreams and I do write them down, now I'm seeing my husband is dreaming really interesting things.
Mhm.
And just by default, like, maybe it's just an awareness. And that's all it needs, right? So super interesting, and obviously sleep matters, the way we sleep, our minerals. So the other day I was talking to my coworker and I had suggested to her to take boron. That's a
Okay.
long story. So obviously just minerals. So she was taking it and she says to me, "Ulrika, um, I haven't dreamt since I got divorced." And that was decades ago. Let's not say she has dreamt, but she hasn't recalled her dreams. And she said, yeah, she had that divorce and she stopped dreaming. And now she's dreaming vividly. So I'm like, wow, what are, maybe our minerals or our balances? I'm sure even hormones play into our ability to remember things.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating.
Yeah, that's I just would say we all dream.
Mm,
Whether we remember them or not is an entirely different conversation. But I know, like, if someone's a regular cannabis consumer, there does actually kinda take your dreams more offline as well. Like,
that doesn't.
so, yeah, it would make sense that depending on what's happening with our systems, what's in our systems, we could potentially have more vivid dreams or, be able to call them even potentially. Um, Actually, that reminds me, I was trying out it was marketed it was a sleep supplement, but it was Amanita mascara
Hmm. Yes.
mushrooms
How did you like that?
through I think it was through MindMeds, I think.
Yeah, they
Are you
have
familiar?
a affiliation with somebody who specializes in that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was trying that to help because I'm always kind of trying to figure out how I can sleep better without sleep aids. And I was trying that, but that I didn't have, like, the most profound effects with it, but yeah, that is another thing that would potentially, like, amplify the vividness of the dreams as well, right? I would just say, though, that that particular tincture that I was taking, because amanitas can be very psychedelic, but
Yes.
I can't remember the treatment name for it right now, but it was made it so it didn't have that psychedelic active compound in the tinctures.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to be able to explore kind of those medicinal routes when it comes to the sleep. Because like, what we are talking, yeah, we're talking about dreaming, but we're also talking about sleep. And sleep
Yes.
is like this, I can't say it enough, but sleep is just like this incredibly important component that a lot of people don't give enough credit to how important it is for like the baseline of absolutely everything in your life, right?
It's huge. Yeah, I always slept really well and really deep as a child. When I started getting the periodic leg movements, they call it. It's like restless legs, but while you're sleeping. I
Yeah.
still have it. Actually, now it's coming back. So I know there's some kind of deficiency going on. So I mean, I take a lot of magnesium, but with the tremors and things, like, I won't get into the health stuff, but yeah, it affects your sleep quite a bit. And then it affects everything else. So I had at one point, just out of curiosity, I had worn a Fitbit at night just to see how my movements were. And I think I moved like 300 minutes a night on average. That was brutal. But you also were talking about heart rate variability, like how important that is. So I bet that
I was, yeah.
ties into it, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting because I do wear an Aura ring because and it's funny, I know the jury is, like, so out on whether we should be wearing wearables and like having Bluetooth on our bodies. For
Mhm.
me, I it really comes down to trade-off. For me, it's Aura Ring. Just with what I've experienced in the past with my own mental health and like not being able to see certain warning signs, the ring has absolutely enabled me to get ahead and like shore up my efforts if something starts looking like it's taking a nosedive in the
That's
HRV.
huge, right?
Just my general resting heart rate and like while I'm sleeping, what is it at? Is it elevated? And obviously, there's components that might come with the fluctuations of my cycle, but being able to get ahead of that and how telling that metric is so useful. We're talking about, yeah, heart rate variability.
Mhm.
So, and I'm not even an expert on it. I just know like what I need to be looking for and like kind of what window it needs to be sitting in.
Yeah,
It's like
and,
a
a
baseline
lot of people need that.
understanding of like something that has actually saved me probably from quite a bit of grief on.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, because if my heart rate's elevated and my temperature isn't regulated like it should be, it will impact the quality of my sleep. It's like guaranteed. Little things
And then
we
it's
can be
a
watching.
snowball effect, right?
It is. It really is. Just like downhill if you're not careful. So then that means, okay, how do I shore up my efforts? Do I need to do a better wind down before I go to bed? I need to make
Mhm.
sure I'm putting my phone aside, reading a book, putting on my blue blocker, the red lenses, like making sure my magnesium's dialed. And sometimes, yeah, I have to take like a sleep aid supplement. I'm really trying to get away from those, but
Mm.
and then also stress management during the day too. So,
Yes, that is huge, right? Like,
yeah,
making sure to intercept that before it kind of runs away on you. That's something I've been
exactly.
working on as well, and,
Yeah,
yeah, just breaking up my day, and
yeah. Because if you're in an elevated stress state all day, it's that much harder for your body to just come to find some baseline as soon as you want to try to fall asleep. So,
yeah, and if you do it long enough, like, you don't even know what a baseline is. You,
it's
like,
true.
have to retrain it. Yeah, I
It's
have
true.
a lot of respect for our bodies after putting mine through a ringer in my younger years, and allowing that to take off. And I earned a lot of respect for Chinese medicine too, because I remember my heart rate was like my resting heart rate was over 100, and my hair was falling out, and I was struggling with just like eating and all kinds of things. And I'd gone through to the hospital a few times just for a bunch of tests, and they all were like, "Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Everything is fine." And then I went to this guy in Edmonton actually. He doesn't even, I don't think he charges his clients. He only charges you for like the medicine or the herbs that he gives you.
He's a Chinese medicine practitioner.
Yeah. And he's looking at my tongue, and he's just like, liver no good. And he like made me this concoction that he boiled down for 8 hours. It was like the most disgusting thing I had drank in my whole life. It was like tar. And I felt like I was gonna die for 2 days. And then my I actually thought that it was normal for my hands and my feet to just be, like, slightly yellow. Like, I thought that was just how I looked, and it cleared up. I mean, the whole pulse thing was so interesting to me. It's changed my mind. I met a woman here because I had taken auriculotherapy, so it's like pressure points of the ear. So it's like you don't have to do acupuncture. I can use the needles on myself, but I'm not, I'm not trained to do that, so but I can just do pressure. So she was teaching me the pulse method where you use somebody's pulse. So you hang on to them and you find their pulse. And then I like run my finger along the ear points because I've always used like an electrical detection device as well as just you go by sensitivity. And she taught me this, and so as I'm going along, the pulse spikes. You feel a spike in the person's pulse when there's a point that requires treatment. That
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't need a scanner, I don't need and it was more accurate than my electrical little device. So
Wow.
I practiced this on my husband. I'm just like, "What?" And every time I do it, I get excited because I'm like, this is so amazing.
Yeah.
What else have we not like trained ourselves to detect and listen to our bodies? It's just wild.
I know. It's interesting because, obviously speaking of something like Chinese medicine, this is ancient, right? It's wise medicine, it's wisdom medicine, and those are the ones that I just speaking from a Western medical perspective is these are the medicines we need to bring back online if we're really going to
Mhm.
acknowledge and appreciate and be able to treat these incredible vessels that we're all walking around in, right?
Yeah, and being open-minded to
Mhm.
understanding all of the modalities, because I think some people, just because you're trained in one doesn't mean it's the end all be all and you can't learn something from another because, yeah.
I think that's I think that it's important just to acknowledge because it's not to say we don't need medicine, like, or westernized medicine either.
Mhm.
It's life-saving, But if we
Yeah.
can create a way to weave all of these modalities into something that, um, can serve in a more structured way without kind of fragmenting a person's ability, like, almost like, where do I start? Where do I look? Like, I
Yeah.
think just I think I'm more mainly talking about, like, accessibility and, you know, um,
Mhm.
where we go first as opposed to where we maybe would go last, that sort of thing. There's no real rhyme or reason or flow. We have all these things at our disposal, for sure, but if you're not informed, if you don't know how to advocate for yourself, it can be very confusing also.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
people do have to advocate for themselves because nobody has the same experience, and so you can have two different people that are going through the same, whether it's disease or imbalance or whatever, and they're just not as receptive to the same things. And practitioners have to be able to listen to that, right? Like, okay, this is not working. Let's not force it, and try to ask the right questions so the person can guide you, actually, so the body can guide you, and that people can listen to themselves and know how to advocate and say what they're actually feeling. Because half the time we don't even realize what we're experiencing because we're also just like, you know.
here are examples, like, great example of, like, you went to the doctor and they said everything's fine, but then it's a question, I think, where a lot of people may get stuck even, is like, "Okay, then what next?" Either they don't q
Yeah.
one, they don't question, "Okay, they say I'm fine, I'm just gonna go home and just keep feeling this way," or, yeah, you become proactive in finding that next step, but, like, there is also a lot of directions you could go with that potentially too, so it's
Yes, yes. I think
almost like a paradox of choice mixed in there as well.
yeah, that's very true. I find that diagnosis is kind of funny. The there are people who will just accept a diagnosis and, like, not go past it, and
I
it's such a
agree.
roadblock, and it's so sad. When I had a diagnosis, I was like, "Oh, no, this is a challenge. Let's see what we can do about it." It's not final. Even if a diagnosis ends up in the worst possible way, it doesn't mean that you don't get to choose how you live.
I absolutely agree. I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I've been written in it. It's coming up in my next book that's coming out, but labels serve. The diagnoses serve in the beginning.
Mhm.
I think, and I mean, this isn't a question I can answer, but the question I have is like, what's the determinant? Like, what's the distinction between someone that can sit in that office and take it and say, okay, that's me, that's mine, this is who I am now, and I will take what they're saying and just walk out and feel completely defeated by that. And maybe the other person who takes it all in probably has a moment of that, but then says, okay, I'm not going to settle for this outcome. How did, like,
Mm.
I just think we're all created very uniquely, and I don't place blame on the person that does the first one, but how do we get around putting people in the position where they feel like they have to settle for
Yeah, that's huge.
what they're being delivered, whatever that might be? Like, don't give me life sentence. Don't give me you got 6 months to live. Don't give me this is something you'll have to live with for the rest of your life. I know we can do better than that. I feel like these time frames that sometimes doctors like to spit out can be useful, but are they really serving? Because we know how the mind works and how it can be
Yeah,
limited as soon as we're given something that is like a reference point for what could happen to us. It really changes us very quickly at a
absolutely. Well,
deep level.
what everybody has in common that has overcome things is the fact that they didn't ultimately accept,
Right.
right? And it's not about not accepting it at the beginning, and but everybody, it seems to be a common denominator. That's what I've noticed. And it's that choice. So you are capable. Yeah. I often wonder if it's, yeah, if it's the way people are raised, if it's just that they don't have, yeah, they haven't practiced that that ability to question things in their life. Maybe their life's been fine not questioning things. I think, and I experienced a little bit of this. So when I had no clue what was going on with me, and I'm going into all these different directions, and I've got tremors, and I've got this and that. I kind of just wanted a hint of something so that I can start investigating the right direction, because you feel like you're all over the place. So sometimes when you get a diagnosis, you're almost relieved. Yeah, because you're like, finally, I know what the heck's wrong with me. But then I was like, but I also don't know. Is this real? It's also not, we have so many variables. So I was in this funny place of like, oh, finally, and no, I actually don't belong here. Um, so it's, yeah, it's a weird place to be, and nobody talks about the in between when you're in this void where, well, maybe more people are talking about it now, where you have no diagnosis, so you feel like you can't really reach out to people and you don't belong somewhere, but you have no clue what's going on. It's what's going on with you isn't normal, and
Yeah.
you're just in this, yeah, this gray space.
Yeah. Because I mean, even when I was first in my like uh like 2012, it was just a whole different landscape. And I didn't know how to really find my people to say like who else is out there like me that's got something going on like me. We do
Mm-hmm.
have that ability now, whether it, just Google search it, like I'm gonna try and find a Facebook group. There is ways to find that. I find a lot easier now. It doesn't mean like I didn't stay in this once I found schizophrenia groups, I didn't stay in them because
Hmm.
it wasn't an energetic that I related to after a while. So it's like there I would yeah, all I'm just trying to say is it is easier now to find similar cases
Yeah,
and interact with people in those scenarios, which I appreciate for sure. I wanted to go back to the work you were doing for last year, and
yes,
because I think now that we've chatted for a bit here, and I've kind of got a sense, I'm obviously like a very general sense of some of the things that you've encountered, but you've had like a life changing moment when you were young, which you just really started digging in the roots of
hmm,
last year to a very deep degree, it sounds like. So, what has the implication been for you, and how does that felt now looking back on your life? How does that feel now? What has that experience been like, if you're open to sharing?
yeah. Um, I think I'm still dealing with it, to be honest. It's been hard to address the things that I have to move through. So, like certain relationships that I don't have many, but that are challenging. Let's say the fact that I now am acutely aware of what I should be doing, or how I should show up to be myself fully means that I have all these opportunities that keep presenting themselves every time I pick up the phone with a person. I can't just go back to my head in the sand. So I always have a choice, and I kind of have to pull in and pause and go, okay, like what would my future self do? It's like do the right thing, speak your mind, put up a boundary. And it's hard. And then it's like, oh, but it's actually the result's great or how they perceive. It's all about we're all the actors in our own story, right? We think that it's such a big thing with dealing with people and they're just living their life too. Yeah, it's that whole assumption, right? So moving through that has been challenging because it feels like I every week I have something that I have to move through. It's just like bombarding me. But it's the personal growth. And the other part is I've felt like I have more grace for my younger self, which is beautiful. And at the same time, I'm also very aware of the fact that I've been suppressing things and that I've been blocking myself from experiencing things. And this desire to step out of my comfort zone and do something with the knowledge or experience that I have. I haven't figured out even entirely what that looks like, but to just pursue it has it was always kind of a bit of a weight and in knowing that I have to get to it, and the more I postpone it, the bigger the weight gets, right? So I'm like, oh, I feel this responsibility to do something with it. And it's scary at the same time because now I have to put myself out there and I'm talking about all these things. Like I'm on here talking about my childhood, whereas I grew up not wanting to tell people about that. I did to some, but it was kind of like, well, I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. And I'm past that now because it's not about me anymore. It's about what somebody else can get out of the story or out of the experience. And yeah, I've just kind of moved past that being in my own bubble, really.
It's a lot to really unearth the truths after many years and be able to look at them through a different lens
Mm,
and, like, allow yourself to process them in a way that maybe it could carry grief or shame or but then also creating the allowance for, like you said, grace and forgiveness.
yes.
Because
Yeah. Grace and forgiveness is a big
have
one.
you held were you angry at yourself? Like, was there anger?
No.
No.
Oddly, yeah, just sadness. I think one of the big things that came up that I unearthed and shocked me, honestly. I never really thought I guess I did think of myself as an empath to a degree. So I had effectively changed at that 7-year-old. I changed into wanting to make everybody around me happy. And I think that's a survival thing too, right? So you even though it's my grandparents, it's like, oh, well, I feel like a burden because they have to take care of me and provide for me and all of these things. So taught myself how to make every decision based on what I think everybody else wants. And what that leads to is quite an analytical mind. Even now, I'm like, oh, I can sit down and I can branch out all of it's like playing chess every day. You think of all the steps and before you go. But what that did was it stripped me of my identity because you do that long enough. And at one point, if somebody asks you what you want, like what you really want, you have no clue. So then you got to learn that again.
Whatever either you know what everyone else wants or you've created a system to try and figure it out for
Yeah.
someone else. You don't know how to do it for yourself. I'm saying it this way because I know that I did that in my own way. And I think as females, it
Yeah.
does
It's,
tend to ingrain itself that way. But I understand. Then yeah, when it comes to like being able to look in the mirror, you didn't know you couldn't answer. What do I want? Who am I?
And then somebody told me, it was last year, they were saying like, the opposite of like narcissism is like being an empath, but you're manipulating everybody because they don't really know the real you because you're actually, yeah, you're manipulating the situation. And I was like, what? No way. Yes, it's so true. So what I've learned is, yeah, just boundaries. Setting boundaries and actually following through with them. It's been, yeah, it's been an experience.
Boundaries is like a whole learning curve, isn't it?
And I think, much like you said, like it's really our programming too. We're set up that way in our world. We're reinforced to behave in certain ways. We're, yeah, that's a whole conversation.
Thinking slash talking a little bit more about shame than in the recently, it's just been like a theme. It keeps coming up for me. But yeah, shame is not something we come programmed with. That is for sure. And I think if we really took some time and looked at, I know for myself, and I know I'm not alone in this, is if we just took some time to actually look at all the things we feel shameful for, that
Mm,
like literally are not shameful. We've just created this dialogue belief in our minds that if we do this, that's like you should feel a certain way. And it's
yeah.
like we didn't feel programmed with that. Just somewhere along the line, we just were taught if you do this and you're not allowed to, then you're out of line. And then there's this
Yeah.
the shame just becomes so ingrained so easily. Anyhow, that's just been a theme that's been coming up for me. And a lot of these things that we carry, these emotions, let's say, they don't they don't have a rightful place. They really don't.
Feel
They're
that. Yeah.
really impeding us from shining as the authentic people that we are supposed to be, right? They're like little fear blocks. So,
They are. And I
yeah.
think we also, just as you were speaking, I realized that we try to even avoid acknowledging shame by giving it different names. Like we try to, yeah, and really just acknowledging that it is that. Unfortunately, I think every society has really, or every culture has taught some degree of it, depending on where you're from. I remember too, I was raised in South Africa, but only up until a certain age. And I used to go to boarding school there, and there, like they just say it's discipline, right? To treat people a certain way and point you out in front of the class and all these things. And so kids will feel shame for not knowing things or not being, quick enough with their answers or whatever. But they just like, no, that's discipline. That's
Yeah, and it's been we don't say explicitly that shame has been used as a form of control, but that's the byproduct is we carry around these shame bodies full of shame that are actually it's probably making us sick, it's stopping us from
Mhm.
shining our authentic light, keeping us from going out and doing things, like, the list is long, I imagine if we really dug into it, and I know that form of manipulation, like what you were saying, I was thinking, well, this like sounds like something um the church like certain
Mhm.
churches would do, like it's very ingrained. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, yes, now, where you are now.
Mm.
The work that you've done, obviously this is not this is a continuation. You're walking it, you're in it, right? And there's still probably so much more you get to see and heal and practice in the work that you've been doing.
Mhm.
What's next? Like, what are your, what's pulling you and what's calling you?
I'm being called into two different directions. As per usual, I cannot seem to pick one thing, which is so hard for me. So, one of the things actually that came up last year, because of my story that I wrote in The Sovereign, I realized that my thread was really about awakening my intuition. So, I had just felt compelled to talk about it, and then I shied away from it because it would just felt too abstract. And I'm like, okay, no. this, I will figure out a way to really dive into it and make it feel a little bit more like embodiment, right? We, yeah, I guess I won't get into details on that. So that's something I'd like to explore much more from a variety of angles. Yeah, teaching it. Yeah. Just experimenting because I think people either get stuck in either the physical or they get stuck in the mental, right? And I think we actually need to yo-yo it. Like you need to work on the physical part where you can unlock things and you can work through things because it's so important. But then sometimes you need to take the focus off of the body for a little bit and you need to go over here. And there are different ways of doing that. And then maybe go back, like back and forth. So I know that's worked for me a little bit. Bridging the gap effectively. And the other one has been the thing that I like to talk the least about is money. And so I've decided to become a little bit more educated in that field. And so we'll see, what I want to do there. But then I thought, as I'm working through, and I've healed a lot of money stories, and I've been able to, bring in considerably more money because of it, simply changing those things. But it's bridging the heart, like our emotions, our, how we value things in life to our abundance and helping people with that because I wish I had talked about it 10 years ago. And it was a safety thing and it was a shame thing. So I really just want to find a way to help people feel comfortable and get to a place where they can work safely through things, however that looks. I mean, there's so many opportunities, I guess, out there. And yeah, it's really just an idea at this point. But that feels meaningful to me because when people are free, then they can start living a whole different life. And the more sovereign people there are in this world, the less impact the deletes will have on on us. Well, yeah, it's just about,
Exactly.
yeah, being more of ourselves.
Love it. I wanted to ask you quickly about the intuition piece.
Mhm.
It sounds to me like you tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm getting the sense that you have like a very strong discernment built in with your intuition. Does that feel accurate to you?
Absolutely, and I think the 2 are linked.
Okay.
It's something I've considered talking about in a more concrete way because I think discernment's thrown out as a word and people don't actually understand how to build it,
Yep.
and you
Yep.
can build it. And I think one of the reasons I've been capable of honing that skill is because I grew up with 3 different sets of parents. So from a young age, not only did I had my intuition to lean on, and I just inherently trusted it, but I also very early on realized that other people's belief systems didn't have to be my belief system. So I didn't just accept everything at face value. So I have questioned everything, but I've also learned that spending all of your energy looking into things to try and prove that you're right can be a huge energy suck. So while that may be necessary as like the first step of learning to trust yourself, kind of what we saw with the awakening and information, you get to a point where you're like, I don't need to research everything. I just need to trust my own intuition. And then I
Yep.
can
The
follow the path.
answer's not out there.
Yeah.
The answer's not out there. The answer's in here. That's so good. Yeah. Honestly, what's coming up for me is like discernment, tapping into the intuitive, and then teaching the fundamentals of discernment would go such a long way. I say that because I'm like in the midst of figuring out what that looks like for myself. But
Hmm.
discernment became such a strong buzzword in the last like few years. And I think there is this gap that needs to be bridged between knowing, having an idea of what that looks like, but actively embodying it in the things that you
Mm.
do, in the intuitive hits you might be getting. I think there's something so important there.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear other people's experiences with that because obviously I'm coming from a certain place, right? So having different peoples at different levels come in and say, yes, this is working or this is confusing, maybe, that would be helpful. So yeah, I'll take that into consideration.
But I mean, speaking for myself, like with what I've walked through with my quote unquote mental health journey is there was I had a whole bunch of information, intuitive hints, intuitive information, signs, symbols, and I still get them. But the most difficult thing for me is sifting through and discerning not just what's important and what's not, but like, is this coming from light or dark? Like, there's that
Yeah,
discernment too, right? So there's anyhow, I feel like that's an entire conversation in
it is.
itself, but it does sound like you're going in an exciting path. I'm looking forward to watching what unfolds and hearing more of your voice in this space. Is it sounds like you that's the plan?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's funny that we're talking about this because I know we're almost at the end here, but like we're obviously connected on social media and
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
chatted, so we've exchanged DMs, but like you're like this elusive force in the ethers. It's like you're there and then, it's like
I've been trying to like figure out how to show up and
here.
not only be consistent about it, but actually just, speak my
Yeah.
truth. And I feel like when one day I looked at my account too, and I was like, yeah, nobody would have a clue what I'm about. And this is so random. It's like, a bunch of stuff for a week and then it's gone for a month. So I will have to chat about the
That's
technology
fair.
piece because that is where I get hung up because I
Yes.
start and then I just like
Yeah.
this isn't
We're
working.
absolutely gonna talk tech. And don't be too hard on yourself. I feel like the vast majority of us are kind of wrestling with what is social media and how do I show up here? Some people just seem to be better at it than others, but I feel that in my
Yeah.
own way too, for sure. So, but it is so lovely to see you and chat because we haven't done this before. So, I guess we'll wrap it there. But thank you so much for joining me today, Ulrika.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.